Time for a hospice story. Sometimes I struggle with telling stories because they don't seem like amazing stories, but they feel amazing to me because of the connection I had with the patient and their families. So I'm just going to try to tell it, and hopefully you feel the same way I do. So this was years ago, one of my first patients, and it was a Hispanic man. He was young, maybe in his 40s, and his wife and their children. They were a Spanish-speaking only family, so I always had to use an interpreter when I was there. An interpreter over the phone, so it was a third party, another woman or man being an interpreter for me. Now, he was young and had a lot of symptoms to manage, so I was there a lot, probably 2 to 3 times a week for, let's say, 3 to 4 months. And I got incredibly close with the wife, even with an interpreter. So we got so close that I always had the interpreter there, but I felt like her and I were so in sync with what he needed and what they needed and how she was feeling and how he was feeling and all of the things that it was almost like I forgot the interpreter was there. And sometimes I would leave the house and with my phone, and I would hear this deep sigh, and then I'd remember that there was an interpreter there, and then I'd be like, "Oh my gosh!" And then they would be like, "Oh my gosh, that was insane, that was incredible," because they're interpreting for all types of people. So then to come in and have such an intense experience as an interpreter, I would forget sometimes how intense it must be for them. So then I would debrief with the interpreter afterwards because they were traumatized. Anyway, like I said, there's not much of a story except for I felt like our hospice group did so much for this family and helped this man so much. And it was so sad, because he was young and he had children and his wife was sad and he was sad. Everyone was sad, right? And I was there when he took his last breath, and all her family was around, his family was around. And I can remember her and I just hugging afterwards. And I probably looked like this, my eyes were teary. I wasn't blubbering. But I just felt so connected to her more than him, because he was always so sick and usually sleeping. And I felt connected to him as well, but I really felt connected to her. And I could feel her journey through this and helping him during his dying process. And I can just remember her hugging me and us hugging, and her just saying, thank you so much. And us just looking at each other in our eyes and not using the interpreter, and just knowing that both of us loved each other and would never forget each other. And I'll never forget them. I'll never forget her. I drove by her house the other day. She lives pretty far away, so I don't see it often. And it brought everything back. I hadn't seen that house for years. Anyway, so that's one of my stories. I love them.